Is this thing working? Give me some sound over here.
Yeah.
The Out of Bounds Show is powered by the award-winning golf courses at Dancing Rabbit Golf Club in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
All right, test drive a Ram truck or a Jeep Grand Cherokee or a Jeep Wrangler at Mac Hike in Flowood today. MacHikeFlowwood.com. If you're in the market for a new or pre-owned SUV, truck, or Jeep, MacHikeFlowwood.com. Show is also presented by Spring Street Cigars in Starkville, Tupelo, Oxford, 2 locations in DeSoto County, Kosciuszko, and opening in Meridian in March. Spring Street Cigars is celebrating their 1-year anniversary tomorrow in Starkville. We'll be there. And last year, Blake and I were there, and Rocky Patel, the Rocky Patel, who owns Rocky Patel Cigars, was there, and we got to interview him, which for me was really cool because I like a good premium cigar, and I love to watch SEC football and or like this weekend, the Super Bowl. So last night I had a San Latano Bull from Havana Smoke Shop. But Spring Street Cigars, 1-year anniversary in Starkville tomorrow. It's going to be a big party. If you are in the area, you'll want to check that out. Maybe you're catching a Mississippi State baseball scrimmage or something. Ole Miss and Dogs and Rebs are getting ready. We're 8 days from opening day. But right now we're going to talk football. We've been discussing the last 2 weeks all the Mississippi flavor and amazing talent and Mississippi players in the Super Bowl. It's going to be a lot of fun for all of us on Sunday afternoon as we have a tasty beverage and good food off the grill to see all the guys that are either played here or tied to the state of Mississippi. And we thought we would bring on our next guest on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line, who is from Mississippi, and that is Jacob Peeler, currently the Missouri wide receivers coach. But he was fortunate enough, I think he'll acknowledge, to coach A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf, among other talented players, while he was the wide receivers coach at Ole Miss. Jacob Peeler, good morning. How are you, bud?
I'm doing great. How about y'all?
Well, we're doing really well. You excited about this Super Bowl?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I got a great day of sitting on the couch and, like you mentioned, just a lot of good food and hanging out watching the game.
All right, so you've coached a lot of really good players. And AJ and DK are 2 of them, but AJ Brown gets traded to the Eagles. Talk about what it was like to have AJ Brown at such a young age and the impact that he had literally right out of the gate, eventually becoming, the most yards in Ole Miss history at the wide receiver position. But those early days, what was it like to coach AJ?
Yeah, a lot of people may not know this, but my relationship started with him when he was a high school junior. I was coaching wide receivers at the University of California at the time, and I was naive enough to think that you can recruit anybody and get them, and so started recruiting him obviously out of Starkville High School, and I was fortunate enough to get him on an official visit, one of his official visits out to Cal. And, the relationship really started there and obviously, didn't land him. Again, as I mentioned, I was a little naive and I do remember I got a hat on the table and was fortunate for that. And obviously had built a great relationship with him and his dad. And when the opportunity presented itself to come back home to Mississippi to come to Ole Miss, I knew I knew the talent that was going to be in that room, and again, having recruited both him and DK both at Cal, and I was very fortunate for that, and just was really able to hit the ground running just because the relationship piece had already been built, and I knew his dreams and aspirations. I knew his drive. I knew, all the things that motivated him. I mean, obviously as a super talented football player, but also a super talented baseball player on top of that. And you mentioned it, I was fortunate. I just try not to mess it up. I mean, the kid, I will never forget where going through first spring ball and he's playing wide out for us. And we had a really, really good spring game and was able to go in the off season feeling pretty confident about him as a wideout. And unfortunately for us, during the summer, we had another receiver that actually won a Super Bowl last year by the name of Van Jefferson. Tore his meniscus in the summer. Was doing just receiver drills, things that guys do in the summer, and tore his meniscus, and he missed all of fall camp. And we had to make a decision, and that was at that time. We're like, okay, we got DeMarcus Lodge, we got DK Metcalf, probably project more as outside guys. Let's try this slot thing out, and moved him in the slot, and I and the rest is history. I mean, I remember the first game we played at South Alabama, that opening season, and I know I think he went for 200 or so. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was something ridiculous, and I guess I'm sitting there almost you're coaching, but you're almost a fan at the same time. I mean, just watching him, how great he was after the catch and his ability. I mean, I always told NFL scouts when they asked me, he is an old school running back. Once he gets the ball in his hands, I mean, he is impossible to tackle. And that's the one thing he has always been able to do, is shed that first tackler. And he is sneaky fast.
Yes.
That was the one thing. Guys always question. They're like, how fast is AJ? And I'm like, he's faster than your fastest guy. Like, he just finds a way to outrun guys, and he's just sneaky fast. He's just so strong, and he's just so motivated, and he's such a great kid. Now he's a man, he's a father, and it's so fun to be able to see that. But again, the work ethic, the time that he puts in away from what people see and what people know. I mean, that's the reason he's successful. It's not just magic. I mean, he puts in the work, and he knows the process, and he was fortunate. I mean, obviously, to have some pieces around him that pushed him, and obviously, you mentioned the Eagles trade. I remember I was actually on the road recruiting, coming back from a recruiting trip, and I'm listening to the NFL draft on the radio, just kind of, as I make my drive, and obviously it breaks that night that he's been traded to the Eagles. And as for me, I'm sitting there, I'm kind of blown away, because I knew he was in a contract. I knew we had discussed some, what little at the time he knew, was going on. And obviously, a lot of people have kind of, as this season has progressed, have kind of found out the relationship piece with him and Jalen Hurts. And again, I remember sitting in my office on a random weekend in at Ole Miss, and I was up there doing some work, and it wasn't anybody there. It was just kind of a casual weekend, and in walks Jalen Hurts and AJ, and their relationship, and at the time Jalen was the quarterback at Alabama, and he had just come to visit AJ. They had built a relationship, prior to that through recruiting and just all that. And so that relationship piece, again, was there. And so I know when that opportunity presented itself to go to Philadelphia, it was a comfortable thing for him because of that relationship with Jalen. And again, many times he would walk and, would have him on FaceTime while he was the quarterback in Alabama and AJ was playing. So that's something that, again, a lot of people may not know. Obviously, people saw the little video that broke the night he was drafted where they were FaceTiming each other, but that relationship went years before. And again, they were buddies, I guess, and obviously the continuity and all the things that it takes. Again, they didn't have to do the get to know each other piece. They were able to get to work, and obviously, they've had a bunch of success this year.
What a story. Jacob Peeler, wide receivers coach at Missouri, was the wide receivers coach at Ole Miss when A.J. Brown was there. And I do remember that when Jacob was able to get A.J. to take an official visit to Cal, and everybody was like, what? Because, it was a Bama, Ole Miss type deal and at several other teams. And that was pretty impressive. He eventually gets hired at Ole Miss and gets to coach him. I think this may be the best quote on A.J. Brown that Jacob just dropped. Let's try this slot thing out. I think it worked, right? I mean, unbelievable in the SEC, now top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. And Jacob, it's funny. We were out at the NFL draft last year in Vegas, and so we're watching the draft live, but we're also watching on TV. All you had to do is look at Mike Vrabel's face, the Tennessee Titans head coach, when he found out that they were shipping A.J. Brown to the Eagles, and you knew how big a deal that was and how ticked off he was, and that was obviously a compliment to A.J. I want to go back to his deceptive speed, because he would outrun people at Ole Miss, and he's even been able to take jet sweeps in the NFL to the house, which is incredible. Do you think it's his build that fools people because he is thick, but then all of a sudden he gets going and he can outrun a DB or a safety?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, he's built like a brick house. I mean, he's super chiseled. I mean, again, it is just very impressive for me. I mean, because again, that was always the question was, was he going to have the long speed? And you just saw it time after time because, again, I mean, he was able to break that tackle, and then all of a sudden you see guys with angles on him, and he just outran them. And it was just amazing to see for all of us coaches because it didn't look like he was moving as fast as he was moving. And again, I don't know if it's just he just hits a gear that, again, we've all know those guys that we grew up with that just refuse to get beat in a race. I mean, refuse to get tackled, and he just has that unique knack to just find a way. That was always the question that scouts would ask was, how well is he going to run? I think he ran a 4.4 something, at the combine, and which is obviously great, but again, I mean, he just has this play speed that is just a unique, ability that he's been able to just find a way and make work for him.
Jacob Peeler on the Out of Bounds show. He coached A.J. Brown at Ole Miss. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Jacob, there's two head scratchers for me when it comes to Mississippi players the last few years getting drafted. A.J. Brown and Chris Jones. I don't know how in the world they dropped to the second round. So when you were watching that play out, were you going, what in the world is going on?
Oh, absolutely. I was actually in Nashville. I was one of DK Metcalf's guests. I was
Nice.
in the green room, and I was there. That was my first time to experience that and see that aspect of it, and just be able to, the emotions, the highs and lows that go along with that. And obviously, that night, DK didn't get drafted, AJ didn't get drafted, and it was gut wrenching for me as again at that point I'm their I'm their supporter, I'm their fan. I'm no longer their quote unquote coach at that point. So you want what's best for your guys, and I was just taken back because again, AJ, you look at it. I mean, he led the SEC, which we would agree is the best conference in college football,
No doubt.
and he led it 2 years in a row. Was a first team All SEC, and checked every box that you needed to check. Again, that was one thing that scouts asked was, could he play outside and at that level? And I explained to him just like, I did to y'all, like that was his original spot. We moved him into the slot because of some injuries. And a lot of people also, may not remember this, but when DK had his injury, we ended up sliding AJ at the end of that last season back to wideout. And I mean, he went off. That was when we moved Elijah Moore into the slot, and we had AJ at the wideout position. And he didn't miss a beat, and that was a thing that scouts kept asking. They're just like, can he separate? Can he do the things he needs to do, at our level? And I'm like, I mean, you're seeing it in the SEC, he's still doing the same things, that he was doing in the slot. And so, I don't know. There was always this, again, NFL scouts, that's their jobs. They're gonna ask the hard questions, and they're gonna try to, decipher through the information. And I just, to this day, that you become friends with those guys as you more and more times you're in this profession.
Sure.
As the years go along, and every time they come up, they're like, we messed up, we missed on that one. I mean, and we just, when you see them, some of them you don't see for 2-3 years, especially, after the COVID thing, you didn't see them, the scouts for a while, and, they'll admit they messed it up. And I think the biggest part for that is just, and AJ would tell you the same, is it just put another chip on his shoulder.
Sure.
Just just something that he, could go out and prove to those guys that they messed up. And I don't think he's ever let anybody forget that.
No, he hasn't. He coached A.J. Brown at Ole Miss. He is Jacob Peeler on the Out of Bounds show, current Missouri wide receivers coach. He joins us on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. A.J. Brown with the Philadelphia Eagles reunites with his friend Jalen Hurts, and all eyes on the Chiefs and the Eagles on Sunday, and just Mississippi players and Mississippi connections everywhere. What about coaching him, Jacob? Was he willing to be coached hard, and was he willing to be challenged at any time, practice or games?
Oh, absolutely. I will, till the day I'm done being a coach, I will always use his saying that he kind of threw to me was, he was like, Coach Peeler, you're a gnat at a barbecue. And obviously us as Mississippians know what that is. That's just an annoyance. And he responded to that. Like, he wanted to be pushed. He didn't want to be told what he did well. He wanted to be told what he could get better at. And, when he had days like we all do that he wanted to, he just maybe didn't want to do it at the level that needed to be done. I mean, he welcomed hard coaching. He welcomed to be pushed, and again, it was very, very rare that you had to do that. But man, when you were able to push him and do those things, he always responded, and he always did the things that you asked of him. And again, I mean, when you're asking your room as a position room, to be selfless, because it's a selfish position by nature. Everybody wants the ball, and
Sure,
everybody wants to touch it every down. I just thought that he was so mature, just how he handled, some games were his games, some games were not. And he just found a way to always be a great teammate, to always, to help the younger guys. Again, like I mentioned, Elijah Moore, who obviously ended up being a draft pick himself. I mean, play behind him, and just the guidance that he was able to kind of give him as a true freshman. And a lot of times guys that, you see guys that maybe are at the talent level that AJ is, that they're just kind of more focused on themselves and their craft. And he was never like that. I mean, like I mentioned, he loved the work, he loved the process, and again, he was just a great teammate. And I miss having him. I'm fortunate enough. I actually talked to his dad 2 days ago, and still talk to AJ very regularly through the season and all the time.
That's awesome.
Just to see him grow, and like I mentioned, now he's a father, and just the things that go along with that. And he's just he's a great success story, but he did it the right way. It's not just a magical thing that happened. I mean, like I mentioned, he put in the work, and he handled it the right way. And he was I was fortunate, to coach him and to be a little portion of his journey.
Man, that's so cool. Jacob Peeler, coached A.J. Brown at Ole Miss. Now he's at Missouri as the wide receivers coach. He joins us on the Out of Bounds show. Before we let you go, what was A.J. like on game day on the field? Was he quiet or a talker?
Oh, he was going to stay in his lane until somebody pushed his button. And I'd say that because I remember we were playing LSU one of the games, and he was always a focused guy, and he kind of stuck to himself, and he had his, like everybody, had his normal pregame routine and things that he would do to kind of get himself in the right mindset. But if somebody, were to do something, I saw a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, I can't remember, where he kind of got in a jar match in pregame, and I actually saw that, one time we played LSU, and one of their, highly touted DBs and him kind of got into it, and he wasn't gonna step across that line unless somebody, pushed him across it. But he's just super focused. Again, he had a rhyme or reason to his process of getting ready to go play in the game. And obviously, the one thing that he would tell you, and he tell you today, that he told me years ago, was get me the ball early, you won't regret it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we were a lot better coaches when he got involved early, and because it just got him in a rhythm. And so we tried to do that, and obviously I know that the Eagles have done that as well. So the earlier he touches the ball, the more he gets into it and is able to kind of just kind of feel his way through it a little bit better.
So you're cheering for the Eagles Sunday?
Oh, there's no question. That's a little unique for us because obviously being an hour and a half from Kansas City and being in Missouri right now, but I'm loyal to my guys, so we will be cheering for AJ in our household.
I love
There's
it.
No question about it.
I love it. Jacob Peeler, wide receivers coach, Missouri, and he coached AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, and how about this? Elijah Moore, DeMarcus Lodge, Van Jefferson, unbelievable. Wide receiver room, and I'm sure I'm missing some guys too. How about, real quick, I got like a minute. How about Elijah Moore developing into just a phenomenal, remarkable wide receiver by his last year at Ole Miss, and then things really started to click this year at the Jets, Jacob?
Yeah, again, you mentioned, I keep saying this, I'm fortunate to be able to, again, coach him, and he was just so unique, and I don't know if I will ever see another one like him. Where what I mean by that is when he walked in the room day one as a true freshman, he was a professional in his mindset and work ethic. There was not a day where he did not, on every rep, every lift, every study hall, like just complete 100% buy-in on every single detail of what it took to be a professional type athlete. And just his skill set alone, I mean, just his ability to get in and out of breaks and cuts, and again, just his knowledge base, you can move him all around. I mean, he knew everything. And it was just, again, it was a fortunate win for us. We were able to get him. He was committed to Georgia and last minute flipped to us. And he played in a pretty run-heavy offense down at St. Thomas Aquinas in Florida, and he wanted to play in an offense that we were, distributing the ball to the receivers, and that was what we were doing. And obviously it worked out for him. And again, another tremendous kid, and just, again, to be able to see his relationship, with that room, with those guys, with AJ and with DK and all those guys, they just have remained close because they all worked together and they all pushed each other every single day, and they weren't afraid to hold each other accountable, which is so rare. A lot of times that was a beautiful part about being their coaches. They would get fix things before I even had a chance to, and there's a reason they're successful and having the success they're having because of their relationships and their ability to, as we say in coach world, take their cool suits off and just hold each other accountable, and have fun with it.
Well, that was incredible insight. Jacob Peeler, wide receivers coach at Missouri. He's from Mississippi. Eventually coached at Ole Miss, and he coached all those guys that we just referenced, including A.J. Brown, who will be playing for the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. Jacob, thanks so much for your time today. We really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all for having me.
Take care.
All right, thank you.
Jacob Peeler on the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. He joined us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. The Out of Bounds Show on 105.9 The Zone ESPN is brought to you by Independent Roofing Systems, the #1 commercial roofing company in Mississippi. I also want to give a shout out to Wilkes Bounds. Happy 18th birthday, pal. We'll be back in a second.